Hi everybody. The emotions you experience when you see something cool for the first time don't compare to anything. Unfortunately, the world is too big to see all of the best, most unusual and simply coolest things, even if you spend the rest of your life traveling. But don't be upset, because we're always ready to help. Today, we have some amazing videos that you have probably never seen before. Let's get it on. Toy pictures. Well, what's the big deal about that? After all, anyone can take a picture of a toy, especially today when every modern smartphone has a good camera, and sometimes even more than one.
Now, get your pretty little portfolio off my desk before I go into a diabetic coma.
But Jared Middleton knows how to take epic pictures of toys. No wonder the guy became famous for doing it. He takes pictures of plastic figures, and the result has more drama, action, and dynamism than some movies.
So put a big pile of the powder right there.
This guy invests all of his time in the process and thinks through everything in detail to show the world another cool shot. Among his models are characters from Star Wars, Pokemon, and many other popular characters. It's a pity that you won't be able to attend the photo shoot unless you're made of plastic. Albino trees. Albinism, i.e. the absence of pigment, can occur in many living organisms, including humans. Everyone can easily imagine an albino laboratory mouse: white fur, red eyes, and pale skin. Albinism in animals is a sign that there's no melanin in the body. But what about plants? In this case, albinism manifests itself in the absence of chlorophyll in leaves and stems. It seems a bit fantastic, but such plants do exist, and one example is the albino redwood. To survive, the tree needs to parasitize on other plants. The redwood tree attaches its roots to the root system of healthy trees, from which it is then fed. Without the help of an ordinary tree, the albino plant will simply die. There are about 400 specimens of such unusual redwood trees in nature, and some of them grow in the US Public Park's Henry Cowell Redwood State Park and the Humboldt Redwood State Park.
Albino redwoods have been called ghosts of the forest. We have found 13 albinos in this park.
Their exact location is not advertised to protect the trees from vandals and poachers. They reach a height of only 20 meters, which is much lower than the usual redwood trees, and their life expectancy is shorter, which makes them even more valuable. Extreme bread baking. Would you agree to go straight into an oven to bake bread? Well, probably there won't be a lot of people willing to join such extreme baking. Meanwhile, chotis puri is a traditional Georgian bread, usually served with every meal, and in the process of making it, you have to put your head in the oven. Literally. The bread is baked in a tandoor, a deep clay oven. To cook the bread, the baker has to slap pieces of fresh dough to the walls of the oven. And to do this, the baker has to practically dive in. And when the bread is ready, he has to take it out by diving again into the inferno. Space flowers. When you think of space, which is a cold and lifeless place, the last thing you imagine is flowers. But Makoto Azuma, a famous Japanese floral artist, decided that it's a great combination and launched some of his bouquets into space. To fulfill this mission, called Exobiotanica, Azuma and his team of 10 worked together with Sacramento-based JP Aerospace, which specializes in launching various objects into the stratosphere. Special platforms and balloons were created, and cameras were attached to the platforms to track the process in space. Azuma used about 30 kinds of bright flowers from all over the world to contrast them against the background of dark space. If flowers symbolize earthly beauty, how can I push the boundaries of nature? This is exactly what the florist asked himself, and it seems that he really succeeded. The flowers rose to a height of 27,950 meters. The balloon spent about 100 minutes in space, after which it burst, and 2 parachute platforms began to descend to Earth. Unfortunately, the bouquets couldn't come back from space. The flowers flew in different directions from the friction force, but Makoto still has some gorgeous pictures to remember it. Giant sponge cake. If you've ever baked a sponge cake, you know it's not the easiest thing to do, especially when it comes to cutting them. Moreover, the cake may not get baked enough or may burn, and then it'll take forever to take it out from the mold. And what about a giant sponge cake? Surprisingly, professional confectioners cope with such a task just brilliantly, and even cut the resulting delicacy using a ruler. So, all the elements are the same size. Frankly speaking, it looks very tasty. Hairy painting. Meet Alan Chen. He works as a barber in the city of Changhua, China. A couple of years ago, Alan already became famous thanks to the unusual and very realistic portraits he created on the back of his clients' heads. But now he has a new hobby, hair paintings. And believe us, it looks much better than it sounds. Alan transforms the hairs that he cuts off of his clients' heads into real works of art. The hairdresser makes all the paintings with his hands too, occasionally helping himself with a regular credit card. It takes hours to create a single painting. For example, it took Alan 6 hours to recreate the characters from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms video game. Imagine how hard it is to work, because if you exhale too much or sneeze, the painting will scatter around. Sadly, as soon as the stylist takes pictures of his works, he immediately destroys them. What can you do? The show must go on. Climbing for honey. During the research of rock paintings, scientists found that 13,000 years BC in Nepal, people were already climbing for honey. It's still a part of Nepalese culture to this day. In the remote village of Bujung, honey hunters climb to a great height to collect wild honey on steep cliffs. The hunters use rope ladders to hang at hundreds of meters above the ground and get to the honey. The process itself is a ritual that passes from community to community. It begins with a prayer and a sacrifice of flowers, rice, and fruit, and after that, a fire is lit to smoke the bees out of their honeycombs. The hunter descends the cliff using rope ladders, and when reaching the beehive, gently takes the honeycombs. Thread sculptures. Janet Eckelman is an American sculptor whose works are located in open territories in different parts of Europe and North America. Janet uses ultra-lightweight material and innovative technology to create her works, combining engineering with art. Made from high-tech fibers originally created for NASA, Eckelman's sculptures use natural elements to create an interactive experience for onlookers. She works with computer scientists and aeronautical engineers from all over the world to bring her ideas to life. And you know, the result is definitely worth all the effort. The oldest restaurant. There are many things in the world that can be called the most something in the world. For example, according to the Guinness Book of Records, Sobrino de Botan is the world's oldest restaurant. In 1725, the Botan couple opened a small hotel in Madrid, and on the first floor they put a catering establishment. This is evident by the plate above the entrance to the building. It shows the date of foundation of the restaurant. The oven, which is still used today, also dates back to that year. By the way, in 1765, the future famous artist Francisco Goya worked as a dishwasher in Sobrino de Botan. Of course, during centuries of existence, the restaurant has had several owners. Thus, since the beginning of the 20th century, Sobrino de Botan has been managed by the Gonzalez family, and currently the owners of the restaurant are the third generation of that family. Currently, the restaurant occupies all 4 floors of the building, and each of them has preserved the atmosphere from centuries ago. Robot sumo. Little robotic sumo wrestlers. This isn't an idea for a fantastic comic book, but a real invention. Robotic sumo wrestlers have been fighting in Japan for several years, but few people actually know about it. Sumo robots are fast, fierce, and violent. Despite the fact that most fights only last a few seconds, they have time to put into practice a lot of different strategies and tactics that are not so easy to notice. Today, there are 2 main types of sumo robots: programmed standalone bots and radio-controlled bots, which depend on the person handling them. Both are popular in certain circles, and every year there are more fans of this unusual sport. Airport worker. Wait, we've seen airport workers many times. Surely some of our viewers will say, there's nothing unusual about them. Well, we agree, but this particular airport worker is a dog. His name is Piper, and thanks to Piper, no bird can prevent a plane from taking off or landing at Traverse City Airport, Michigan, USA. Piper's important job is to keep birds away from runways and taxiways, so they don't interfere with takeoffs and landings. Piper started working as a wildlife control worker in January 2015, and it's a full-time job. The dog working day starts at 4 a.m. and lasts until 2:30 p.m. The fact is that the airport attracts flocks of Canada geese and other water birds. White owls also fly here in winter. Brian Edwards, the owner of Piper, is contacted by the dispatcher to report that there's a bird or a flock at the airport. Brian and Piper get into the car and drive to the target. Then the owner points out the target to Piper, who scares away the birds. According to Brian, the dog is not just a pet to him, but a true friend. And doing an awesome job with your best friend is the dream, right? Shrimp fishing on horseback. Catching fish or other marine creatures such as shrimps is a rather monotonous occupation. It's hard to think of anything new or unusual here, because the most unusual things have long been invented. For almost 700 years now, the coast near the Belgian town of Oostduinkerke has been home to an unusual tradition of shrimp fishing on horseback. And this is not a joke. This fishing method used to be widespread among the Flemish coast of the North Sea and in some other areas, but nowadays it has been preserved only in Oostduinkerke. Fishermen here ride Belgian Brabant draft horses, a regional breed of large and strong horses which are up to 165 centimeters tall. Behind them and along the wavers, they carry a 10-meter funnel-shaped net. When the horse passes through the water, it creates vibrations that make the shrimp jump into the net instantly. The rider and the horse move slowly along the coastline, filling the net with shrimp. Every half hour, they return to the shore. The horse rests while the fishermen empty the net using wooden sieves, and then they repeat the process. Psst, dude, are you looking for new technologies and great gadgets? Are your thoughts focused on the future? Do you love huge vehicles and can't imagine your life without robots around you? Then visit TechZone and you'll find all this and more. The link is in the description. You interested? Great.